Can you believe a wild animal like a lion could be a friend of human and remember the friendship for years? A compassionate woman came upon a sickly lion cub while trailblazing in the deep forest and decided to save the unfortunate creature. It definitely wouldn't have survived the night without her help. But that's not all. Then, an incredible event occurred. Something that would drastically alter the woman's life. Like all other women, Heather was also an average American. She had a very typical life, yet loved traveling. She therefore traveled places, hiking, camping, and exploring when she wasn't at work. Heather undoubtedly had a taste for adventure, which she enjoyed pursuing as much as she could. She had heard the sounds of various kinds of animals while traveling, some cute and charming, and others big and threatening. It should be noted that, from experience, Heather knew when to explore any animal noises she heard and when not to, and she typically stayed away from any scenario that would be harmful. But one day, when she was out on a mountain hike, Heather heard a call that aroused her interest. It had a faraway, melancholy groan, as if an animal were frightened or lost. Despite being an experienced explorer, she originally chose to stay to herself and continue walking, but something about these particular sounds broke her heart. Despite her better judgment, she moved toward the direction of the distant somber sound because she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was that she couldn't ignore. Heather stepped out onto a patch of longer grass. There were no animals in sight, but the noise was becoming louder. She quickly swept away a section of grass and saw a little creature screaming out. When she realized the noise was being made by a kitten, she was quite startled. It was coated in dust and filth and seemed very skinny, as if it hadn't eaten in days. There was no sign of its parents, and it was obvious that the kitten was not being cared for. It might not survive the night if she had left it there. All of it was a natural part of the vicious cycle of existence. But does this imply that Heather couldn't step in when the opportunity arose? She reached an agreement. If the kitten was still there and alive the next day, she would rescue it and attempt to bring it back to health. Otherwise, she would leave the kitten alone. But Heather wasn't going to give up entirely. She went back to her vehicle and grabbed any food she could find along with a backup bottle of water. She collected everything and set it down next to the kitty. The kitten ate and drank everything with gusto. The kitten responded by giving her a short yelp of pleasure as if to express gratitude for her generosity when she stroked its tiny head. At home, Heather struggled to fall asleep that night. She was very concerned about the kitten. As soon as day dawned, she immediately returned to the animals and to the very spot where she had seen the little animal. She was shocked when the kitten came running out of the grass towards her right away, obviously remembering her from the day before. It was clear that the small, vulnerable animal trusted Heather implicitly and that its mother was not coming back to look after it. Heather could only do one thing as a result. When she got back to her vehicle, she scooped up the cat and cautiously drove home. Over the next days and weeks, Heather developed a close and unusual attachment with this little animal, which she had let wander freely throughout her property. Not only that, but she also made sure it had everything it needed to live, including food and a desire to eat. The kitten, however, not only survived because of Heather's kind care, but it also began to flourish and grow bigger and bigger. However, Heather discovered a startling discovery at this point. What she had saved was not a kitten at all, but a wild lion cub. That cub had grown to the size of a small dog, and day by day, its characteristics were starting to resemble those of a lion. Heather literally struggled at this point to grasp the fact. Heather visited a veterinary clinic with the cub to get proof of her strong suspicion. The doctor examined it and performed some tests, which quickly revealed that the kitten was a young male lion. They suggested Heather let it go back into nature, but the truth was, Heather didn't want to give the small animal up just yet, since they had developed the feelings for each other so much in that little time. However, it was unfortunate to know that a giant male lion would not make a decent companion. They were intended to live in the wild with other people of their type since they were born to be free. It was obvious that the lion would benefit from being rehomed in a situation that was much more suitable. The veterinarian advised that sending the male lion to Africa would be the best course of action. There, he could spend the remainder of his days on the broad, sun-kissed plains, be the king of the jungle, and start his pride. After preparations were done, the male lion was ready to be taken away only a few short weeks later. Heather found it increasingly challenging to keep him around the home as he grew bigger. He wasn't confrontational or violent, He was simply too enormous to live with due to his size, and he was unintentionally inflicting a lot of harm and ruin. The lion let out a loud, sorrowful moan identical to the one that had originally made Heather also grieved as her enormous buddy was led into a cage on the back of a transport truck. This could be the end of a sadly beautiful story. But after a significant amount of time had passed, Heather was finally forced to face reality. She came to know that she was terminally ill. Her life expectancy was just a few months, according to doctors. And when she thought about what she wanted to accomplish with the time that was left to her, there was no room for doubt in her mind about what her top priority was. She wanted to go to Africa so that she could observe the lion one more time. She wanted to make sure he was doing well and give him a proper send-off before leaving. Heather's health, which was making her feeble, made the voyage from America an exceptionally lengthy and difficult one, especially for her. Despite this, she was certain that it's worth it. And before she knew it, she was riding in a vehicle with a group of safari rangers as they drove into the midst of what seemed to be an empty plain. The heat of the sun was intense, and Heather did not hear or see any animals during this time. Never mind the lions. Soon, she observed a tiny grouping of trees in the distance, and below them, she made out the outlines of 7 or 8 lions of varying ages, some of whom were pups. There were lionesses too among them, and a male lion with the appearance of a big beast. Is it possible that this is the cub that she found? The rangers kept a watchful lookout for any potential threats, but meanwhile, Heather did something that they had not been anticipating at all. She exited the van and went into the open air at that point. She was yelled at by the rangers, who were attempting to get her back into the vehicle, but it was too late. The lions were already closing in, with the dominant male being the largest of the group. Heather, who seemed calm and composed, reached out her hand, and to everyone's surprise, the lion stopped and sniffed at her with curiosity. However, after sniffing at Heather's body odor, the lion immediately recognized who she was. It then proceeded to ruffle her delicate frame with its powerful head while letting out a merry little growl. It was obvious that the lion still recalled his former companion, even though the keepers of the range seemed to be on edge. With happy tears streaming down her cheeks, Heather seemed to be in the state of joy and content all by herself. Even though the lion would never be able to repay her for what she had done, and even though he would not be able to rescue her from the deadly illness that she was suffering from, the fact that she could reunite with her old friend once again meant the world to her. And it was all because of that one day a very long time ago when Heather felt compassion for the poor creature and decided her life to help it. And that's the amazing tale of the day. Is your mind blown? Now it's your turn to tell us what you think about this incredible tale. If you had found the sad, helpless lion cub, would you have saved it? Have you ever heard of such a strong and lasting friendship between a person and a lion? We always appreciate hearing from you. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.